AITA for reporting my boss after he crossed a line with my girlfriend and blamed me. 2 years ago, I started working at a marketing firm that seemed like an incredible opportunity at the time. The team was great, the office culture in our Denver location was pleasant, and the workload, although heavy sometimes, remained manageable. Everything was going well until about 6 months ago, when our new department had arrived. Since this guy has been here, it has become a nightmare. I cannot describe it any other way, and it is not just because of the workload. It is because this guy is a complete narcissist. And when I say complete, I mean everything revolves around him. He thinks the world owes him something just for existing. He does not even have the necessary skills to be in his position, but he is well connected, that is all. The reason he is in this position of power is because he is college buddies with the owner's son. The owner's son also works here, but as a vice president. So basically, my boss is not here because he is competent or capable. He is here because he has friends in high places, and that gives him a sort of impunity that he uses to make life miserable for everyone working under him. I was not the only one affected. Since his arrival, he has done nothing but create roadblocks in our work. He loves giving orders and demanding things, but he does not lift a finger to do anything useful. He spends most of his time in his glass-walled office or walking the hallways observing what we do. And then, when someone on the team accomplishes something important, he takes all the credit. He does not even try to hide it. Recently, I had a meeting with a senior director to present a campaign proposal I had been working on with my team for weeks. It was something we were really proud of. And guess what happened? My boss sat there, having contributed nothing, and at the end of the meeting, he said it was his idea and that he was happy his team executed his vision so well. I could not believe it. All the work, the late nights, and the energy I had invested in this project, just for this jerk to stand there and take all the credit. And the worst part is that no one else in the room said anything. No one dared to contradict him because they know how well connected he is. That was not the only time he did something like that to me. One afternoon, during a busy day, he asked me to prepare a detailed analytics report he needed for a presentation. He told me he wanted it on his desk in an hour and left me no room to reorganize my other tasks. I scrambled to get it done on time, and when I arrived in his office with the printed report, he looked at it for a few seconds, then started raising his voice at me in front of everyone, saying the data visualization was incorrect and that it was a disgrace to hand him something so mediocre. I felt humiliated. But when I pointed out that he had given me contradictory instructions on what he wanted, he became even more aggressive, telling me I was a subordinate and that he could not believe someone with so little attention to detail was still employed at the company. I am not the only one who has suffered because of this guy. My female colleague, with whom I often collaborate, has also been one of his targets. One day, we were working on a project for one of the company's most important clients. My colleague had been managing the logistics for weeks. When it came time to present the results, he started criticizing every little detail. He complained about completely unimportant things or things that were not even her responsibility. After the meeting, he approached her in front of the whole team and told her that if she could not do her job correctly, she should perhaps consider a less demanding role. It was devastating to see her so frustrated. I knew how hard she had worked, but no matter how much effort you put in with this guy, it is never enough. And if that was not enough, this guy also has a pretty troubling history regarding how he treats women in the office. He makes unwanted advances toward them. Some have briefly dated him, but many others have rejected him. It was sickening. In my case, things got even more complicated because my girlfriend also works at the same company, in the finance department. We met here about 8 months ago and have been dating since. My boss knows it, and it does not seem to bother him at all. In fact, he seems to enjoy the situation because he keeps making inappropriate comments to my girlfriend. My girlfriend is incredibly professional and has tried to maintain as much distance from him as possible. From the beginning, she made it very clear that she was not interested, but that did not stop his advances. A few months ago, at a company holiday party, my boss approached her and started making disgusting comments, telling her that if she was tired of dating someone like me, he would be happy to show her what a real man was. My girlfriend quickly walked away, but since that day, he continues to send her suggestive messages and make insinuations every time he sees her. He even went so far as to send her emails from his professional account, messages full of unprofessional jokes and insinuations that she deserved better. We have often discussed the idea of going to human resources to report him, but she is afraid. It is not just because of the discomfort of confronting the situation, but she knows this guy is seen as untouchable. The boss is very good friends with the owner's son, and everyone knows it. My girlfriend fears that if she files a formal complaint, she will be fired or worse, blacklisted in the industry. She moved to this city for the job and has no family here, so she relies heavily on her income. If she gets fired, she does not want to depend on me until she finds another job, which is completely understandable. I know the situation is difficult for her, but I cannot just stand by and do nothing while this person harasses her and creates a hostile environment for us. The final straw was a week ago, when my boss made a vulgar comment about one of our female colleagues who was not present. We were in a team meeting when, for no reason, he started saying that women like her were only there to try and climb the corporate ladder quickly, because someone was probably helping them in multiple ways. I could not take it anymore. I stood up and confronted him in front of everyone, telling him to stop and that he could not talk about our colleagues as if they were objects. I also told him to stop harassing my girlfriend, that enough was enough, and that if he did not stop, I would file a complaint with HR myself. At that moment, I felt powerful, but it did not last. My boss looked at me with an arrogant smile and told me I could file all the complaints I wanted, but that he could make sure both my girlfriend and I lost our jobs. He literally told me that having friends in high places opens many doors, but it can also close them. Then he added that if I continued to bother him, not only would we be fired, but he would also make it very difficult for us to find work in this industry again. Basically, he was threatening to destroy our careers if we did anything to defend ourselves. So now, I am here asking for advice. I do not know what to do. I am ready to lose my job if it means this guy pays for what he has done, but my girlfriend does not want to take that risk, and I completely understand. She does not have the same support network as I do. If she loses her job, it would be much harder for her to get back on her feet. I have also thought about contacting other women who have been harassed by him, but I suspect many of them are as scared as my girlfriend. I do not want anyone to lose their job because of this guy, but what can I do if everyone in the company is too afraid to stand up to him? Thank you to everyone who read this far. I really appreciate any advice or suggestions you could give me. Update 1. My girlfriend and I have talked a lot about what we should do, and after reading some of the comments people left on the previous post, I think we are finally starting to see a clear path. I am truly grateful to all of you, not only for your suggestions, but also for sharing your own experiences with difficult managers. I think the most logical and effective thing we can do is try to contact other people who have had negative experiences with my boss. We cannot continue to handle this alone, and I have come to the conclusion that if more people file a formal complaint, it will be much harder for the company to ignore the problem, even with his connections to the owner's son. My girlfriend, however, still has doubts, which I completely understand. She is really worried about retaliation, and even though I do not mind losing this job if it means this guy faces consequences, it is ultimately her decision. But after discussing it several times, I think she is starting to see the value in this idea. At the end of the day, neither she nor I can continue working in an environment like this, and we also do not want others to continue being victims of his behavior. We know the fear of losing a job weighs heavily, but it is also obvious that working under his conditions is equally unbearable. The plan for now is to start contacting other women who have been on the receiving end of his inappropriate behavior. I already have a few people in mind who have also mentioned feeling uncomfortable around him. The challenge will be approaching them the right way, because I do not want them to feel pressured or scared. The situation is very delicate, and the last thing I want is for someone else to feel threatened or in danger of losing their job for speaking out. I even thought about contacting the women who supposedly had a relationship with him. I know this could be tricky, but I also have a feeling that these relationships were probably not healthy for them either. People like him generally manipulate and use their position of power to get what they want, and if he has been able to harass so many women, I would not be surprised if he also mistreated the ones he was involved with. Not all of them might want to speak, and some might feel embarrassed, but I think it is a possibility worth exploring. What is holding me back a little now is that I do not want to do anything without being completely sure that my girlfriend agrees with this plan. I do not want to push her into something she is not ready for or drag her into a battle she does not want to fight. I have seen how much this situation has affected her, And although I feel she also wants to see justice, I worry she might not be emotionally ready to face what could be a very difficult process. For now, we are going to move slowly. She decided to start by approaching some of the women she already trusts to test the waters and see if they would be willing to speak. If enough people are interested in filing a collective complaint, then we will move to the next step. I am trying to be as strategic as possible at this stage, because I know that once we start this process, there will be no turning back. I am not going to lie, I am nervous. I know this could end badly for both of us, but I also feel that we cannot just sit back and watch this guy continue to destroy the workplace for everyone. I am determined to do what is right, but I also know we must be smart and careful in how we proceed. Thanks again to everyone for your advice and support. It really helped to know we are not alone in this situation. I will keep you updated on the progress of this process. I hope we can find a way to resolve this fairly. Update 2. These past few weeks have been extremely exhausting, not so much because of the work itself, but because of everything we had to do to gather enough evidence and coordinate the complaints against my boss. Honestly, it has been emotionally draining, not only for me and my girlfriend, but also for everyone involved. And even though the fear is still present, I feel like we are getting closer to the end of this nightmare. During this time, my boss has not stopped his behavior. As if everything that happened so far was not enough, a few days ago, he put me in another humiliating situation. He had asked me to prepare a presentation for an important client, a task that required a lot of effort and dedication. I worked overtime, not only to meet the deadline, but also to make sure everything was perfect, given the importance of this client for the company. On the day of the presentation, just before entering the conference room, my boss quickly reviewed the slide deck I had prepared and, without warning, decided to change everything at the last minute. Then, during the meeting, the client was not satisfied with what my boss presented. But instead of taking responsibility, he said I was the one who had worked on it, shifting all the blame onto me. Not only was this unprofessional on his part, but also unfair to the client. Regardless of whose fault it was, he is the project lead and should have taken responsibility instead of blaming an employee, especially when it was not even my fault in this case. Seeing that as a client is not what you expect when you hire a firm. But the most shocking event of these past few weeks does not concern me directly. A female colleague from another group, with whom I have talked a lot recently because she also had problems with my boss, finally lost her patience. It turned out my boss had been making inappropriate comments to her for months, and she had tried to stay calm and professional, but everyone has their limits. One day, during a meeting where she was presenting a project, my boss started making inappropriate jokes, insinuating that her success in the company was not due to her skills, but to other ways of impressing her superiors. It was a completely out-of-line comment, made in front of other people. My colleague, visibly upset, looked at him, and, without thinking, an incident occurred where she reacted physically. The room went silent. My boss tried to laugh awkwardly and downplay the situation, but you could clearly see on his face that he was furious. She stood up and left the room without saying another word. Later, she told me she did not regret what she did, but that she was worried about the possible repercussions. Fortunately, she also decided to join us in this collective complaint. She knows that standing up to him alone would only make things worse, but with everyone's support, she feels it is time to act. There are now 7 women ready to file a formal complaint against him, including my girlfriend. It is a huge relief to know she finally decided to join us. I know it was not an easy decision for her, but it is becoming increasingly obvious that this is not an environment where any of us can continue working if nothing is done. And it is not just about women he harassed. Some of them are his so-called former girlfriends, because their relationships with him did not end well. After their breakup, he started treating them more aggressively and cruelly, probably in retaliation for them ending the relationship. One of them in particular told me a story that was deeply disturbing. Apparently, when they were still together, my boss tried to make advances on her sister at a party. That is what pushed her to leave him. But things did not stop there. After she broke up with him, he started sabotaging her work. Suddenly, she started receiving impossible tasks, unrealistic deadlines, and constant criticism of her performance, all with the clear goal of making her life impossible until she resigned. She endured a lot, but now she feels it is her chance to get justice. I also spoke to a few male colleagues who, like me, were victims of his mistreatment. Although the focus of the complaint is on his behavior towards women, it is important to also consider how he treats other employees. His abuse of power is not just limited to one type of behavior. It is also emotional and professional. I learned that at least 3 other people are ready to share their side of the story, describing how they were humiliated, belittled, and manipulated by this guy. We all share the same goal. We want this to be so significant that it is impossible for the company to ignore it. We want the volume of complaints to be so overwhelming that, even with his connections, the pressure is so strong that the company has no choice but to act. Today is Friday, and we are a few days away from making this official. The plan is for all of us to go to the Human Resources Department together on Monday morning. We are not going to file the complaint as a group, but we will all show up at the same time, so they know it is a coordinated and serious effort. Each of us will have a private meeting with the HR team to share our experiences in detail. This way, each case will be handled individually, but with the collective strength of knowing we are all in this together. We know it will not be easy, and it is very likely they will try to protect him because of his connections, but we are confident that with so many of us, they will have no choice but to act. And if they try to cover it up, we have already discussed other possible options, like consulting with an employment lawyer. That is all for now. Monday will be a key day. I do not know what will happen, but I hope we are finally close to getting justice and ending this cycle of abuse. I will post an update once everything is over. Thanks again to everyone who read and commented. Your support has been a beacon in this difficult process. Update 3. Today is Monday evening, and we finally spent the whole day talking with the Human Resources Department. It was a pretty long day, although that did not surprise us, and we were ready for it. Each of us had the opportunity to share our version of the events. What I can say for now, at least, is that there is a slight relief in this whole process. After hearing all of our testimonies, HR made the decision to temporarily remove my boss from his duties and placed him on administrative leave while they continue their investigation. This is a first step, although I do not consider it a definitive victory yet. We know the investigation could go either way, but the suspension offers us some respite and the chance to work without having to see him for a while. What surprised me the most today was what happened after our meetings. My boss's friend, who is also the owner's son and a VP, gathered all of us who had filed complaints for a meeting. To be honest, at first, I was worried this meeting was a trap or an attempt to intimidate us, but it was completely different from what I had imagined. He told us he was shocked by everything that had been revealed and that he had no idea his friend had behaved this way. The most surprising part was that he seemed truly determined to conduct a thorough investigation, and he assured us he would take decisive action against him if the accusations proved to be true. I cannot say for sure if he said it because he truly believes our version of events or if he is just doing it to protect the company's interests and limit legal liability, but for now, it is a good outcome. We knew there was a high probability he would try to defend his friend, but instead, he seems to be taking the situation seriously. Of course, I am not naive. This could be part of a strategy to protect the company's reputation and avoid bigger problems, but ultimately, his interests and ours seem to be aligned, and that is what matters most. For now, all we can do is wait for the results of the HR investigation. I am trying to keep my expectations measured because I know a lot can still happen. It could take weeks or even longer, but for now, I am satisfied to have taken this first step. I hope to come back soon with more news and, hopefully, with a result that makes it all worth it. Update 4. I have to announce something that, honestly, I did not think I would say so soon. My boss, or rather my former boss, no longer works at the company. They decided to terminate his employment, and although we already knew the situation was serious, that is not the only bad thing that has happened to him recently. His downfall was even harder than we could have imagined, and I cannot help but feel immense satisfaction for myself, my girlfriend, and everyone who suffered under his management. To begin with, I want to say that I am truly happy, and so is my girlfriend. Everyone involved is relieved that this is finally over and in the best possible way. Up until the end of this story, there was always a small chance that somehow my former boss would manage to escape the consequences, but fortunately for us, that was not the case. The fact that he was fired is already reason enough to celebrate, but what happened next was the real surprise. The company decided to fire him after the HR investigation, which was already a huge relief because it meant we would no longer have to run into him at work. They even appointed a new manager for my team, and so far, I can say he is infinitely better than the previous one. He is someone who truly seems to care about the team's well-being and doing things right, which is a radical change from what we had endured. But what was truly shocking was learning that the company decided not only to fire him, but also to file a lawsuit against him. This is due to several statements made during the investigation revealing that my former boss was not just creating a hostile work environment, but was also defrauding the company. I do not have all the details since it is part of an internal investigation that we do not have direct access to, but the rumors are pretty strong. Apparently, my former boss was selling confidential client information to the competition. He had broad access to client data, especially since he was one of the people in charge of overseeing large projects and managing sensitive contracts. Word has it, even though these are just rumors for now, that he used his position to gather key information about clients, including data on their market preferences, their future strategies, and even details about their contract negotiations with us. He allegedly then sold this information to some of our closest competitors, which is not only a blatant violation of the non-disclosure agreements we have with our clients, but also a total betrayal of the trust the company had placed in him. From what I have heard, the company is suing him for a significant amount. They are talking about approximately $365,000, which, although not a massive fortune, is a considerable sum for a lawsuit of this kind. Violating a confidentiality agreement and his duty of loyalty is not something taken lightly, and such violations generally lead to serious financial and legal consequences. This has tarnished his reputation in such a way that it will be very difficult for him to recover, not only within the company or our industry, but also beyond. His name is now associated not only with workplace misconduct, but also with corporate espionage, which means his chances of finding another job in this field are practically non-existent. And that is what really gives me peace, knowing that if any of us ever decides to join a new company to seek other opportunities, we will not have to worry about crossing paths with him again. He is not just out of the company, but it is highly likely he is out of any other company in this industry. If he loses this lawsuit, it will leave yet another stain on his record, making his professional future even more difficult. Although he could try to work in another industry, in our sector, his name is definitively ruined. Honestly, this is much more than I expected when we started this process. At first, we just wanted him to stop making our lives miserable at work, but all of this took on proportions we had not even envisioned. The fact that he is facing legal consequences for what he did is honestly the best outcome we could have hoped for. Finally, I want to warmly thank everyone who advised us to file a collective complaint. It was undoubtedly the best decision we could have made. If we had acted individually, we probably would not have achieved this much. Now things are much calmer, and although it remains to be seen how the lawsuit against my former boss will end, I already feel like we have won. Update 5. I want to give one last update regarding my former boss and his lawsuit. For those who have been following this, it seems everything is finally over. My former boss did not win the lawsuit. He reached a private settlement with the company. Although the exact details of the settlement have not been disclosed, he agreed to pay a substantial amount to put an end to all this. Rumors suggest an amount over $250,000, but as I mentioned, I cannot confirm if these figures are exact. However, when there are so many rumors, there is usually some truth to them, so this amount is probably quite close to reality. Regardless, it is clear that what he had to pay is a pretty significant consequence for him. In the end, what matters is that he faced a fair penalty for his actions, which brings a sense of closure for all of us involved. It is a huge relief. Knowing he had to face the consequences of his actions brings us the peace of mind we needed, and while we cannot erase what happened, we can at least turn this page with the satisfaction that justice has been served. Comment. Thinking about this story reminds me of how important it is to protect our own peace. It all starts with recognizing that your dignity is not up for negotiation. Setting boundaries can be one of the scariest things you will ever do, but it is also one of the most powerful acts of self-respect. You never have to face these challenges alone. There is incredible strength and kindness when people stand together for what is right. Taking responsibility for your own well-being is the first step toward true healing. The goal is not just to win a battle, but to create a life where you feel safe and valued. Always remember to choose the path that honors your spirit and is kind to your future self. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.